They said it would never happen. They said Canelo Alvarez would never dare to put his legacy on the line against a man as dangerous, as ruthless, and as unpredictable as Terence Crawford. But now, the world is on fire because the whispers have become roars. And the reality is standing right in front of us. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Bud Crawford. The collision nobody thought they would live to see. This isn't just boxing. This is the kind of fight that rips through history. The kind of fight that leaves scars on the sport forever. And already the first shocking truth is out. Canelo didn't want this fight. He tried to avoid it. He tried to dance around it. But when Crawford cornered him, there was nowhere left to hide. That's the story no one wants to admit. For years, Canelo Alvarez has been painted as the unbeatable king, the face of boxing, the untouchable golden boy turned ruthless champion. He built an empire off knockouts, off bullying opponents, off out-muscling men who didn't belong in the same ring. But Crawford is a different animal. He's not coming to survive. He's not coming to collect a paycheck. He's coming to expose the fraud, to humiliate Canelo in front of the entire world. And the scary part? He might just succeed. People forget that Crawford is undefeated for a reason. He's not just winning fights, he's dismantling careers. He doesn't just outbox you, he breaks you down piece by piece until you question whether you belong in the ring at all. Fighters leave the ring against Crawford looking like ghosts of themselves. Their confidence gone, their future gone, everything stripped away. And now he has Canelo locked in his sights. You can already feel the tension in the air. This isn't hype. This is real. This is dangerous. And if you're a Canelo fan, you might not want to watch what's about to unfold. Because let's get one thing straight. Canelo is not used to this. He's used to opponents freezing under the bright lights. He's used to men folding when they feel his power. But Crawford is not afraid of him. Crawford looked at Canelo, laughed, and said, "You're just another name. You bleed like everyone else." That's not confidence. That's cold-blooded truth. And the more you look at this matchup, the more you realize Canelo might be walking into the trap of his life. Already, insiders are whispering that Canelo's team tried to steer him away from this fight. They know Crawford is a nightmare stylistically. They know Crawford has the tools to make Canelo look slow, to make him look old, to make him look human. And that's the last thing Canelo wants. His entire brand, his entire image is built on being the unstoppable Mexican warrior who crushes everything in his path. Imagine what happens when Crawford makes him look ordinary. Imagine the shock when Canelo the King gets embarrassed and fans are salivating for it. Social media has exploded since the announcement. Crawford supporters are already saying this will be the end of the Canelo era. Memes are flying. Betting markets are shifting. People are putting their money on the underdog because they've seen the look in Crawford's eyes. That cold, dead stare. That hunger. That refusal to bow down. Crawford isn't just fighting for belts. He's fighting for legacy, for respect, for history. And when a man like that steps into the ring, you better believe he's coming to take everything. Canelo, of course, is trying to play it cool. He's putting on the face, the interviews, the rehearsed lines. "I'll fight anyone, anytime, anywhere, but don't be fooled." Behind closed doors, he's nervous. He has to be, because for once, he's not the one holding all the cards. Crawford has forced his way into the spotlight, dragged Canelo into the fire, and now Canelo has to answer. This isn't Canelo picking a safe opponent. This isn't Canelo stacking the deck. This is Crawford saying no more running, no more excuses. Meet me in the ring. And here's the part that's really blowing people's minds. Crawford didn't just chase this fight. He demanded it. He hunted it down like prey. He made so much noise, so much pressure that Canelo couldn't duck away. Every time Canelo tried to dismiss him, Crawford came back louder. Every time Canelo tried to look the other direction, Crawford stood right in his path, until finally Canelo had no choice. That's not the move of a confident champion. That's the move of a man forced into battle. And that's exactly why fans believe Crawford has the mental edge. Because let's face it, Canelo's aura isn't what it used to be. The loss to Dimitri Bivol cracked the armor. People saw it. The invincible Canelo could be beaten. He could be made to look ordinary. He could be outboxed. And if Bivol could do that, what do you think a sharp, ruthless technician like Crawford is going to do? Crawford lives for these moments. He thrives when everyone doubts him. He thrives when he's counted out. And in this fight, he's not just the hunter, he's the executioner. That's why fans are saying this isn't going to be a normal fight. This is going to be a massacre. Canelo has never faced someone this slick, this smart, this relentless. He's used to guys who fall apart after a few rounds. Crawford gets better as the fight goes on. He downloads you, he studies you, and then he takes you apart, round by round, piece by piece. And when he smells blood, he doesn't stop. He finishes you in brutal fashion. That's what's waiting for Canelo inside that ring. The tension is unbearable. Every expert has an opinion. Some say Canelo's power will be too much. Others laugh and say Crawford will embarrass him. But what nobody is denying is this. This is the fight of the decade. This is the collision that fans will talk about for the next 50 years. And it's all because Crawford refused to bow down. He forced Canelo into this war, and now the clock is ticking. Already the rumors are spreading. People close to Canelo's camp are saying he's been pushed harder in training than ever before. He knows what's coming. He knows Crawford is not another easy payday. He knows Crawford is a threat to everything he's built. And that kind of pressure? It either makes you rise to greatness or collapse under the weight. Crawford, on the other hand, is smiling. He's calm. He's collected. He's training in silence. No flashy videos, no over-the-top talk. Just that deadly focus. The look of a man who already knows the outcome. That's terrifying. Because Crawford doesn't fight with emotion. He fights with calculation. He doesn't just swing, he dissects. He doesn't just hit you, he breaks you. And if Canelo thought he was walking into just another fight, he's dead wrong. This isn't hype. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This is Crawford versus Canelo, the biggest risk of Canelo's career, the biggest opportunity of Crawford's life, and the biggest spectacle boxing has seen in years. Fans are calling it a war, analysts are calling it a death sentence, and the fighters themselves? They know exactly what's at stake. One will walk out a god. The other may never recover. And if you ask the fans right now, most of them are betting on Crawford to be the one who rises and Canelo to be the one who falls. So here we are. The fight is set. The stage is built. The fire is burning. And one question is echoing louder than ever. Is Canelo Alvarez about to be destroyed by Terence Crawford? Or will the king remind the world why he built his empire in blood and glory? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. This is going to be the fight that shocks the world. And once that first bell rings, there's no turning back. Crawford has chased him into the corner, and now it's time to see if Canelo can survive the storm. Canelo Alvarez. The name itself sends shivers down the spine of boxing fans around the globe. For over a decade, he has been paraded as the face of modern boxing, the man who built an empire out of blood, power, and precision. They called him invincible. They called him unstoppable. And for years he seemed untouchable, stacking belts and stacking bodies in his path. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Canelo's career has been carefully crafted, carefully managed, and carefully protected. And now, for the first time in years, that shield has been ripped away. And he's standing naked in front of a predator like Terence Crawford. This isn't just another fight. This is a test Canelo may not survive. Let's rewind. Canelo started his career as a hungry kid from Guadalajara, tearing through local fighters before exploding onto the world stage. He built his reputation fighting smaller men, faded champions, and carefully selected opponents. He climbed divisions, picking his battles strategically, always with the comfort of being the A-side, the cash cow, the golden ticket for anyone who dared share the ring with him. And with that power came influence. Judges favored him, promoters worshipped him, and networks bent the rules for him. It wasn't just his fist that built his empire. It was the machinery of boxing itself, desperate to crown him as the king. But here's where the cracks begin to show. When you look closely at his career, you start to see a pattern. Fighters past their prime, fighters moving up in weight, fighters who were never truly built for war at the highest level. He looked untouchable because the deck was stacked in his favor. And yet, even with all the advantages, there were nights when he looked human. Nights when his stamina betrayed him. Nights when his defense had holes. Nights when his power wasn't enough. Floyd Mayweather showed the blueprint over a decade ago. Erislandy Lara gave him nightmares. Gennady Golovkin arguably beat him in their first fight. And then came Dmitry Bivol the night the myth of invincibility shattered. Canelo was supposed to walk through Bivol just like he had bullied everyone else. But Bivol didn't bow down. He didn't freeze under the lights. He stood tall, used his jab, used his footwork, and exposed the truth. Canelo couldn't chase him down. He couldn't adjust. He couldn't solve the puzzle. And for 12 long rounds, the world saw what happens when Canelo can't control the fight. He looked ordinary. He looked slow. He looked beatable. And that is the ghost that has haunted him ever since. Now imagine facing Terence Crawford, a man sharper, faster, more ruthless, and more versatile than Bivol. That's the nightmare that Canelo's camp doesn't want to talk about. Crawford isn't just a puzzle. He's an unsolvable riddle. He switches stances mid-fight. He downloads your rhythm, your timing, your weaknesses. And once he figures you out, he doesn't just outbox you, he destroys you. Canelo's power might mean nothing against a man who can see every punch coming, slip it, and punish him before he even resets. And fans know it. That's why so many are calling this the end of the Canelo era. For years, he has ruled with an iron fist, but Crawford represents something different. He's not intimidated. He's not impressed by Canelo's fame or his fortune. Crawford comes from nothing. He built his empire with his own fists, with his own blood, fighting anyone and everyone who dared stand across from him. And when you put a man like that in front of a protected champion, sparks aren't just gonna fly, they're gonna burn the whole house down. Canelo, of course, has his loyalists. They say his power will be too much, that his body shots will break Crawford down, that his size will overwhelm him. They repeat the same lines they've used for years. Canelo is too big, too strong, too experienced. But how many times have we heard that before? They said the same thing about Jeff Horn, about Sean Porter, about Errol Spence. And each time Crawford not only proved them wrong, he humiliated them. Errol Spence was supposed to be the monster of the division, the man who would bully Crawford. Instead, Crawford dissected him like a surgeon and left him looking helpless. If Crawford could dismantle Spence like that, why wouldn't he do the same to Canelo? And let's not forget, Canelo has been slowing down. Watch his recent fights carefully. The explosiveness isn't the same. The stamina fades in the later rounds. He loads up on punches, but when they don't land clean, he gets frustrated. Against Bivol, against Golovkin in their trilogy, against Caleb Plant, the signs were there. He wins on experience, on grit, on reputation, but the dominance isn't the same. He's aging. He's wearing down. His body has carried years of wars. And that's exactly when a predator like Crawford strikes. The shocking part is that Canelo knows it. That's why this fight feels so different. This isn't the confident, smiling king we've seen for years. This is a man who's cornered, pressured, dragged into a fight he didn't want. Crawford forced this on him, and that psychological edge is enormous. When you walk into the ring with doubt in your heart, you're already halfway to defeat. And the way Crawford talks, the way he carries himself, you can tell he smells blood. He knows Canelo is vulnerable, and he's coming to rip the crown from his head. Fans are already imagining the unthinkable. What if Crawford knocks out Canelo? What if he drops the King of Mexico in front of the entire world? That kind of humiliation would shatter not just Canelo's career, but his legacy. He would no longer be remembered as the invincible warrior. He would be remembered as the man Crawford exposed, the man Crawford destroyed, the man who fell when it mattered most. And for Canelo, that's the nightmare that keeps him awake at night. But here's the twist. Canelo is dangerous when cornered. He's prideful. He's carried the weight of Mexico on his shoulders his entire career. He knows what's at stake, and that kind of pressure can forge a man into steel. If there was ever a time for Canelo to show true greatness, it's now. And that's why fans are glued to this fight, because nobody knows which version of Canelo will show up. Will it be the ruthless body snatcher who crushed Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and Caleb Plant? Or will it be the sluggish, frustrated Canelo who looked lost against Bivol? That uncertainty is why this fight has the world hooked. No matter how you spin it, this is a crossroads. If Canelo wins, he silences the critics. He regains the aura. He proves that he's still the face of boxing. But if he loses, especially if Crawford humiliates him, it's over. The king will have been dethroned, his empire in ruins, his legacy forever tainted. And Crawford, he'll rise as not just a champion, but as a legend who slayed the giant, the pound-for-pound king who dared to take everything. This is why people are calling it the fight of the decade. It's not just about belts. It's about pride, legacy, history, and the brutal truth of boxing. One man's glory will be another man's downfall. And when the bell rings, there will be no excuses, no politics, no protection. Just two men in the ring, one crown on the line, and a world watching with bated breath. And the more you think about it, the more you realize something terrifying. Canelo might not be ready for what's coming. He's never faced a man like Crawford. He's never faced someone this hungry, this smart, this deadly. And when that storm hits, it might already be too late. Terence Crawford. The name alone carries a chill. The kind of chill you feel when you realize you're staring into the eyes of a predator who never misses his kill. For years, fans and fighters alike have whispered the same thing. This man is different. He doesn't just win, he annihilates. He doesn't just box, he dissects. And now, with the entire boxing world watching, He's aiming all that venom, all that precision, all that cold-blooded hunger directly at Canelo Alvarez. Crawford isn't like the other fighters Canelo has bullied. He isn't going to shrink under the bright lights. He isn't going to fold when the crowd roars. He isn't going to be starstruck by Canelo's fame, money, or status. Because Crawford has already lived through wars that would have broken other men. He grew up fighting in the streets of Omaha with nothing but survival on his mind. He's been shot in the head and walked away. He's faced doubters at every step of his career. People saying he wasn't big enough, strong enough, flashy enough. And each time he proved them wrong by breaking men in the ring. That's the DNA he carries. That's the nightmare that Canelo's walking into. Let's talk about his record. 40 fights, 40 wins, 31 knockouts. Not a single man has solved him. Not a single man has walked out with their reputation intact. Look at the list of bodies Crawford has left behind. Yuri Ortiz Gamboa, once thought to be untouchable, got hunted down and finished. Victor Postol dismantled with ease. Kell Brook, who gave other champions nightmares, couldn't last. Sean Porter, one of the toughest warriors in boxing, broken so badly that his father threw in the towel. And Errol Spence Jr., the man many called the boogeyman of welterweight. Crawford didn't just beat him, he humiliated him. He dropped him 3 times and left him looking like he didn't belong in the same ring. That wasn't just a victory. That was an execution. And here's the scariest part. Crawford gets better as the fight goes on. He's like a machine downloading data. The first couple of rounds, he studies you. He reads your timing, your habits, your mistakes. And then once he's figured you out, it's over. He switches stances, cuts off the ring, lands punches you don't even see coming. His opponents always describe the same feeling: confusion, frustration, panic. They think they have him figured out. Then suddenly they're getting tagged from angles they didn't know existed. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. Crawford has them drowning, and he doesn't let them up for air. This is exactly why fans are calling him the most dangerous man alive in boxing. He isn't just strong. He isn't just fast. He isn't just smart. He's all of those things combined, wrapped in a ruthless mentality. When he hurts you, he doesn't give you a chance to recover. He smells blood like a shark, and he finishes with no hesitation. That's not just a fighter. That's an executioner. And when you put an executioner in front of Canelo Alvarez, you have the recipe for disaster. Canelo is used to being the bully. He's used to being the one dictating the fight, pressuring his opponents, making them fight scared. But how do you bully a man who doesn't break? How do you intimidate someone who has walked through fire his entire life? Crawford doesn't just welcome the pressure, he thrives in it. He wants you to come forward. He wants you to swing big shots. Because the moment you do, he punishes you. That's the trap Canelo's walking into. And don't think Crawford is just coming for a win. No, he's coming for destruction. He's coming to humiliate Canelo in front of the entire world. He's made it clear. This fight isn't about money, it isn't about fame, it isn't even about belts. It's about legacy. It's about proving once and for all that he is the pound-for-pound king, the man who took out the so-called face of boxing and left no doubt. And when a fighter has that kind of motivation, that kind of hunger, you better believe he's going to walk through hell to get it. Look at the way Crawford handled Spence. Spence came in undefeated, confident, bigger, stronger, and backed by years of dominance. People thought Crawford would finally be tested. Instead, Crawford embarrassed him. He walked him down, beat him up, and finished him like it was nothing. That wasn't supposed to happen. Spence was supposed to be the biggest challenge of Crawford's career. Instead, he became Crawford's masterpiece. And that's exactly why fans believe Canelo is in for the same fate. Because the truth is, Crawford is versatile in a way Canelo has never faced. He can fight orthodox. He can fight southpaw. He can fight off the back foot. He can walk you down. He can counter. He can brawl. He can box. He has every tool in the book, and he uses them with deadly precision. And when he switches gears mid-fight, opponents don't know what to do. They freeze. They panic. They fall apart. Imagine Canelo, the man who relies on rhythm, timing, and power, suddenly realizing his punches aren't landing, his feet aren't keeping up, and his body shots aren't slowing Crawford down. That's when the panic sets in. That's when the empire starts to crumble, and Crawford knows it. You can see it in his eyes when he talks about Canelo. There's no fear, no hesitation, no doubt. Just cold, calculated confidence. He knows he's walking into the biggest fight of his life, and he knows he's going to deliver. That's the mindset of a killer. That's the difference between a fighter and a legend. Crawford isn't satisfied with belts. He isn't satisfied with paydays. He wants history. He wants to be remembered as the man who slayed the giants, the man who left no question about who the greatest of his era truly was. Fans are already calling him the real pound-for-pound king. They're saying if Crawford beats Canelo, there's no debate left. He'll go down as one of the greatest fighters to ever live, period. And that's exactly what he's chasing. He doesn't just want to beat Canelo. He wants to dominate him, humiliate him, and strip away the myth that's been built around him for years. He wants to leave Canelo broken, questioning his own place in history. And the way Crawford fights, the way he hunts, you can't rule that out. And let's be real, Crawford is mean in a way few fighters are. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to hurt you. He wants to take your pride, your spirit, your legacy. He smiles after knockdowns because he enjoys it. He taunts his opponents when he knows they're broken. He's ruthless, cold, unforgiving. And when you put that kind of mentality in front of Canelo Alvarez, who's used to being worshipped, used to being feared, you can see why fans are salivating. This isn't just a fight. This is a hunt. And Crawford isn't hunting for sport. He's hunting for blood. He's hunting for history. He's hunting for the crown. And once the bell rings, there's no escape for Canelo. He'll be trapped in a ring with a man who has spent his entire life preparing for this exact moment. And when a fighter like that sees his chance, he doesn't miss. He doesn't hesitate. He takes it with both hands and never looks back. That's what's waiting for Canelo Alvarez, so the question isn't whether Crawford can beat Canelo. The question is how he will do it. Will he outbox him for 12 rounds and leave him looking helpless? Will he catch him with a counter and drop him to the canvas, shocking the entire world? Will he beat him so badly that the corner has to throw in the towel, just like Sean Porter's father did? However it happens, one thing is clear. Terence Crawford is coming to take everything. And he's not planning on leaving any mercy behind. And as the world counts down to this war, the fear in Canelo's camp is real. They know what's coming. They know Crawford isn't just another opponent. He's the storm. He's the nightmare. He's the executioner. And once the bell rings, there will be nowhere left to run. The announcement of Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford didn't just break the internet, it shattered it. Within seconds of the news dropping, the boxing world went into chaos. Fans, analysts, promoters, and even fighters couldn't believe what they were hearing. A fight that seemed impossible, a fight that many thought Canelo would never agree to, was suddenly real. And the reactions? Explosive doesn't even begin to describe it. Social media went into overdrive. Hashtags exploded across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Within minutes, Canelo vs. Crawford was trending worldwide. Fans from Mexico flooded timelines with messages of support, screaming that their king was about to silence the doubters once again. But Crawford's army came back even louder, promising that this was going to be the end of the Canelo era. Memes started flying instantly. Images of Canelo running from Crawford, pictures of Crawford holding a crown dripping in blood, gifs of lions tearing apart bulls. The internet had declared war long before the fighters even stepped into the ring, and then came the experts. Pundits who usually play it safe couldn't resist jumping into the frenzy. Some called this the fight of the century, the matchup that would decide the true pound-for-pound king. Others were more brutal, outright saying Canelo had made a mistake, that he was walking into a slaughterhouse. One analyst went viral with a line that spread like wildfire. This isn't a fight. It's an execution waiting to happen. Fans clipped it, shared it, and suddenly Crawford's reputation as the executioner of boxing grew even bigger. Betting lines shifted overnight. At first, Canelo opened as the favorite, the bigger man, the more experienced star. But as fans poured money onto Crawford, the odds started flipping. Casinos reported that 70% of early bets were being placed on Crawford. Not because he was bigger or stronger, but because he was hungrier, smarter, and more dangerous. The people had spoken. They believed Canelo's time was up. Even other fighters jumped into the chaos. Retired legends gave their takes, and active champions couldn't stop debating it. Some said Canelo's power would crush Crawford the moment he landed clean. Others scoffed, saying Crawford's timing and precision would make Canelo look like a statue. The arguments became vicious, spilling across talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube debates. Everyone had an opinion, but no one could deny one fact. This was the fight boxing had been starving for, and the tension only grew worse when the two fighters faced off for the first time. Reporters described the atmosphere as electric, like standing in the middle of a thunderstorm. Canelo stared hard, his jaw tight, trying to project the same confidence he's always carried. But Crawford barely flinched. He stared back with that same cold, deadly glare that has unnerved every opponent he's ever faced. He didn't blink. He didn't smile. He didn't care about the cameras. He looked at Canelo like a man looks at his next victim. Fans watching the stare down said it all. Canelo looked like a champion, but Crawford looked like a killer. Clips of that moment went viral. Fans slowed the video down, analyzing every twitch of Canelo's face, every flicker of his eyes. They swore he looked nervous, that for the first time in years, the Mexican superstar felt pressure he couldn't shake. And Crawford? He became a meme machine. People captioned his icy stare with lines like, "The last thing you see before the lights go out." That one stare down alone sent the hype into the stratosphere, but it didn't stop there. The press conferences were pure fire. Crawford taunted Canelo, accusing him of ducking for years, saying, "You didn't want this smoke. I chased you down. You're here because I left you no choice." The crowd erupted. Canelo fired back, saying Crawford was biting off more than he could chew, that he'd never faced a man as strong as him. But the more Canelo talked, the more fans felt like he was trying to convince himself. Crawford didn't even raise his voice. He just smiled, shook his head, and promised, "You're going to find out the hard way." That single line lit up the internet. Fans clipped it, remixed it into songs, plastered it across highlight reels. Everywhere you looked, Crawford's words were haunting Canelo. And for the first time in a long time, the king of boxing wasn't the center of the storm. He was the target of it. And then came the training camp leaks. Reports began to circulate that Canelo was struggling in sparring. Anonymous insiders claimed he was getting frustrated, that he was being outworked by younger sparring partners, that his stamina wasn't holding up. Fans seized on the rumors, saying it was proof that the years of war had finally caught up to him. Crawford's camp, on the other hand, was silent. No leaks, no drama. Just videos of Crawford working in the shadows, looking sharper, faster, and deadlier than ever. The contrast was staggering. Canelo looked like a man under siege, while Crawford looked like a man preparing for the hunt of his life. Fans on both sides dug deeper. Mexican fans reminded the world of Canelo's wars with Golovkin, the brutal knockouts against Saunders and Plant, the way he had carried Mexican pride for years. They said Crawford had never faced someone of Canelo's caliber, never taken punches from a man that heavy, that powerful. But Crawford's fans fired back with equal venom. They said Canelo had never faced anyone as smart as Bud, never faced someone who could switch styles mid-fight, never faced someone who could take away every weapon you have and make you look helpless. The online wars were just as brutal as the fight itself promised to be. And then the promos dropped. Networks released trailers with thunderous music, clips of Canelo's knockouts, clips of Crawford dismantling opponents. Narrators boomed about legacies, about kings and killers, about history being written in blood. Fans watched the trailers millions of times, commenting that they had chills, that they couldn't breathe, that this was the fight they had been waiting their entire lives to see. Every new clip sent waves of excitement crashing across the internet. Even celebrities got involved. Rappers, actors, athletes, all taking sides, all hyping the fight. Some wore Canelo gear, pledging allegiance to the king. Others rocked Crawford shirts, declaring that the pound-for-pound crown was already his. It wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a cultural event. The entire world was being dragged into the storm, whether they liked it or not. And the crazy part? This is only the buildup. This is just the noise before the violence. Fans know that once that first bell rings, all the debates or the memes or the trash talk won't matter anymore. There will only be two men in the ring, and one of them is going to leave broken. The anticipation is so thick you can feel it. Every day that passes, the tension tightens. Every stare down, every word, every training clip pushes the hype higher. By the time fight night arrives, fans won't just be watching, they'll be trembling because they know what's at stake. If Canelo wins, he reclaims his throne, silences the critics, and reminds the world why he's been the face of boxing for so long. But if Crawford wins, if he humiliates Canelo the way he humiliated Spence, then everything changes. The king is dead, the crown is stolen, and the sport itself will never be the same again. And that's why fans can't look away. They know this isn't just another boxing match. This is war. This is history. This is the kind of fight that gets carved into stone and remembered forever. And as the countdown continues, the noise is only getting louder, the hype only getting crazier, and the fear only getting sharper. Canelo versus Crawford isn't just a fight. It's the storm that's about to tear the boxing world apart. Fight week arrives, and the atmosphere is unlike anything boxing has seen in years. From the moment the fighters landed in Las Vegas, chaos followed them everywhere. Airports were packed with fans holding Mexican flags, screaming Canelo's name like he was a god returning home. But right there, just as loud, Crawford's supporters showed up with signs, shirts, and chants, promising that their man was about to break the myth of the Mexican king. Reporters described it as a battlefield before the war, with fans almost ready to fight each other before the fighters even threw a punch. Cameras followed Canelo as he walked through the hotel lobby, surrounded by a wall of security. He smiled, waved, posed for pictures, but sharp-eyed fans noticed something different. The usual swagger, the aura of untouchable confidence, wasn't quite the same. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The man who had always seemed unshakable looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Crawford arrived in near silence. No giant entourage, no circus. Just him, his small team, and that same stone-cold expression. He didn't wave, didn't pose, didn't care. He looked like a man on a mission, a predator walking straight into the lion's den without fear. The media events leading up to the fight only poured more fuel on the fire. Every press conference turned into verbal warfare. Canelo's team pushed the narrative of size, power, and dominance. They reminded everyone that Crawford had never fought at this weight, never stood across from a man built like Canelo. He's going to feel something he's never felt before, Canelo said into the microphone, his voice firm but not explosive. Crawford leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. When it was his turn to speak, he delivered daggers without raising his tone. Everybody talks until they get hit, and everybody thinks they can hit me. Until they miss. The crowd erupted, and then came the open workouts. Thousands of fans crammed into the venue, shouting, booing, cheering. Canelo hit the pads, looking powerful, sharp, his combinations echoing like gunshots. But critics noticed his footwork looked heavy, slower than usual. Crawford's workout was the exact opposite. He didn't even go full throttle. He shadowboxed, moved around the ring, switched stances, grinned as if he was in a sparring session. His calmness was unsettling. Fans watching online started commenting, Canelo looks like he's fighting for his life. But looks like he's just having fun. The contrast was terrifying. And then, as if scripted by fate, rumors exploded. Reporters whispered about Canelo's knee, about potential injuries, about grueling weight cuts. Nothing was confirmed, but the chatter grew louder by the day. Fans remembered how Canelo had faded against Bivol, how he had looked human in that fight. They started wondering if Crawford was catching him at the perfect time, if the king was already weakened before the war even began. Crawford, on the other hand, had no rumors, no excuses, just silence and focus. That silence became its own weapon. The weigh-in was an event of its own. Tens of thousands showed up to watch two men step on a scale. Mexican flags clashed with American flags, chants of Canelo. Canelo were drowned out by Bud. Bud. The energy was violent. Security had to form human walls to keep the fan bases from colliding. And when the fighters finally squared off, the world held its breath. Canelo flexed, roared, his muscles popping under the lights. He looked like a machine built for destruction. But Crawford, he just stood still, smirking, eyes locked on Canelo's. No fear, no flinch, just pure confidence. And when they finally broke apart, fans online were convinced Canelo blinked first. The weigh-in footage spread like wildfire. Clips replayed endlessly, with fans dissecting every second. Some swore Canelo looked nervous. Others swore Crawford's smirk said everything. The hype reached a fever pitch. Millions of people across the world marked their calendars, set their alarms, bought their pay-per-view packages. Fight night wasn't just a sporting event. It was global theater, and everyone was waiting for the curtain to rise. The undercard fights rolled by, but nobody cared. Fans packed into the arena hours early, chanting, singing, drowning out the sound of the commentators. The crowd wasn't just divided, it was hostile. Mexican fans draped in green, white, and red screamed from one side, while Crawford supporters in black and gold screamed back. Security had their hands full breaking up brawls before the main event even started. It was more than a fight. It was pride versus pride, culture versus culture, legacy versus destiny. Finally, the lights dimmed. The arena shook as the walkouts began. Canelo's entrance was grand, fire shooting into the sky, mariachi trumpets blasting through the speakers, his face plastered on massive screens. He walked slowly, soaking in the roars of his people, draped in the Mexican flag. It was a king's entrance, pure royalty. But then the music cut and the crowd erupted again as Crawford made his walk. No theatrics, no fire. Just him, his hood pulled up, walking with icy focus as a haunting beat played. The difference was striking. One man came in as a king. The other came in as an assassin. The ring was set. The world was watching. The introductions boomed through the speakers. The crowd roared so loud it shook the cameras. And then, finally, the bell rang. Round 1. The war had begun. Right from the start, the energy was suffocating. Canelo came forward, looking to establish dominance, throwing heavy shots, digging to the body, trying to make Crawford respect him early. The crowd roared with every punch, even the ones that landed on Crawford's arms. But Crawford didn't flinch. He circled, studied, his eyes locked on Canelo like a sniper searching for the shot. He didn't throw much in the opening minute, just tested the range, moved his feet, switched stances, giving Canelo looks he wasn't used to. And then it happened. The first clean exchange. Canelo threw a looping hook to the body. Crawford slipped and fired back a sharp counter straight to the face. The punch landed flush. The crowd gasped. Canelo ate it, nodded, but for the first time fans saw it. The power was real. Crawford wasn't just here to survive. He was here to hurt the king. The rest of the round was chess mixed with violence. Canelo pressing, Crawford countering. Every second felt like a bomb waiting to explode. The bell rang, and fans across the arena and around the world were already trembling. This wasn't going to be an easy night. This wasn't going to be routine. This was going to be war, and neither man looked ready to give an inch. As the fighters went back to their corners, cameras zoomed in on their faces. Canelo's jaw was tight, his eyes focused, but his breathing looked heavier than usual. Crawford sat calm, expressionless, sipping water like he was in a gym session. The contrast couldn't have been more chilling, and fans watching at home began to say it out loud. Canelo might be in trouble. And that was just the beginning. The opening round was only a taste of the chaos that was coming. Every single person watching could feel it in their bones. This fight wasn't going the distance. Someone was gonna get broken. The only question was who? Round 2 began, and the crowd was already on edge. Canelo came out determined to send a message. He ripped to the body with vicious hooks. The kind of punches that had broken ribs before. The kind of punches that made opponents fold. The thud of his gloves echoed through the arena, and his fans roared every time he landed. But Crawford didn't panic. He absorbed, blocked, slid out of range, then snapped back with crisp counters. His punches weren't wild. They were daggers, fast, precise, meant to cut, not just bruise. Halfway through the round, Canelo tried to trap Crawford in the corner, throwing a heavy combination. The crowd rose to his feet, sensing damage coming. But Crawford slipped the last shot and fired a counter uppercut that snapped Canelo's head back. Gasps filled the arena. Canelo backed up, blinking. It wasn't just that Bud landed. It was how sharp it looked, how fast. Fans who thought Canelo's pressure would smother Crawford were suddenly forced to admit this wasn't going to be easy. By round 3, the tone had shifted. Canelo was still throwing hard, but Crawford had found his rhythm. He was switching stances, slipping shots, making Canelo miss big punches by inches. Every miss made the Mexican star look a little more frustrated, a little more desperate, and every time he missed, Crawford made him pay. A jab here, a straight left there. Small shots, but precise, humiliating shots that reminded the world why Crawford was feared. The crowd was split in half. One side roared every time Canelo swung. The other exploded every time Crawford landed clean. The sound inside the arena was chaos, a storm of voices battling for dominance. Commentators struggled to keep up, their voices cracking as they tried to capture the intensity. This wasn't just boxing, it was a war of wills, and both men were digging deep. Round 4 was where the fight took its first dark turn. Canelo came out aggressive, pushing Crawford to the ropes, throwing thunderous body shots. One landed clean to the ribs, and Crawford grimaced for a split second. Canelo's fans screamed as if it was the beginning of the end. But instead of folding, Crawford snapped back with a brutal 3-punch combo that stunned Canelo. A jab, a straight, and a hook, all finding their mark. Canelo froze, then staggered a step. The crowd gasped again. For the first time, the king had been rocked. The arena erupted into madness. Half the fans screamed for Canelo to hold on. The other half screamed for Crawford to finish him. But Crawford didn't rush. He stalked forward like a predator, eyes locked on his wounded prey, firing shots with surgical precision. Canelo fought back, swinging heavy, desperate punches to buy time. The bell rang, saving him from more damage, but the damage to his aura was already done. Crawford had proven he could hurt him. As the fighters sat in their corners, cameras zoomed in. Canelo's face told the story. He was breathing harder, sweat dripping, his eyes wide. Crawford? He looked calm, expressionless, almost bored. Fans watching at home could see it clearly. One man was fighting to survive. The other was hunting for the kill. Round 5 only deepened the nightmare for Canelo. He tried to reset, tried to push forward, but Crawford was in complete control. He jabbed Canelo's head back repeatedly, snapping his neck with each shot. He switched southpaw and landed a crushing left hand down the middle. Canelo swung back, but his punches were slower, wider, easier to see. Crawford's counters landed cleaner and cleaner. Each shot felt like a knife, cutting deeper into Canelo's armor. The commentators began whispering the unthinkable. Is Crawford dominating Canelo? Is the king of boxing actually being picked apart? Fans on social media went wild, spamming clips of Canelo's head snapping back, editing them into montages of destruction. The narrative was shifting right in front of the world. Then came round 6, and this was the round that changed everything. Canelo, desperate to turn the tide, came out swinging with reckless aggression. He threw a massive right hand that barely missed Crawford's chin. He poured on shots, throwing with everything he had, trying to break Crawford's defense. For a moment, it looked like the pressure was working. Crawford backed up, shelled up, and Canelo's fans roared in hope. But then, out of nowhere, Crawford exploded. He slipped a punch and fired a counter right hook that landed flush on Canelo's temple. The crowd gasped. Canelo's legs buckled. He stumbled back into the ropes, dazed, his hands dropping for a split second. Crawford saw his moment. He pounced, unleashing a savage combination. Left, right, uppercut, hook. The punches landed clean, each one snapping Canelo's head violently. The king was in trouble. The arena went insane. Half the crowd screamed for the ref to stop it. The other half screamed for Canelo to fight back. But the truth was clear. Canelo was hurt badly. His legs were shaky, his defense wide open. Crawford circled like a shark smelling blood, hammering him with shot after shot. The bell finally rang, saving Canelo from a possible knockout. But the damage had been done. As Canelo sat on his stool, his corner frantically worked to wake him up. Water splashed in his face, ice pressed against his neck. His trainer shouted, begged him to stay focused. But Canelo's eyes told a story. He looked rattled, shaken in a way fans had never seen. Crawford across the ring sat calmly on his stool, barely breathing heavy. His face was cold, merciless. He knew he had broken something in Canelo, not just his body, but his spirit. Social media exploded instantly. Clips of the round flooded timelines. Fans screamed that Crawford had exposed Canelo, that the myth of the Mexican king was crumbling in real time. Others begged people not to count Canelo out, reminding everyone of his warrior heart. But the truth was undeniable. The momentum had shifted completely. Crawford was in control, and Canelo was holding on for dear life. As the fighters stood for round 7, the atmosphere inside the arena was suffocating. Fans could feel it. The king was wobbling. The assassin was closing in. And everyone watching knew, if Canelo couldn't turn things around, he was about to face the most humiliating defeat of his career. Round 7 began, and every eye in the arena was glued to Canelo. The question hanging in the air was simple. Could he recover, or was Crawford about to finish the job? Canelo came forward with his guard high, trying to re-establish control. He threw heavy jabs, dug to the body, but there was something different now. His punches no longer carried the same snap, the same conviction. Crawford could feel it. He stepped in, slipped the shots, and cracked Canelo with stiff counters. Each one was like a reminder that the tide had turned and it wasn't going back. The crowd sensed it too. Every time Canelo threw, there were cheers of desperation, as if his fans were begging him to land something big. But when Crawford connected, the arena erupted with violent energy, a roar of inevitability, as though the fans were watching a man take apart a machine piece by piece. The commentators tried to inject drama, insisting Canelo's power could still change everything with one shot. But the truth was written on his face. He was chasing shadows. Midway through the round, Crawford slipped a hook and landed a savage uppercut that snapped Canelo's head back. The crowd gasped. Canelo stumbled a step, his legs shaky again. Crawford didn't rush. He didn't need to. He stalked, picked his shots, stabbing Canelo with jabs, punishing him with hooks, walking him down like a man hunting prey that had nowhere left to run. By the end of the round, Canelo's face was swelling. His right eye was starting to close. The once invincible king of Mexican boxing looked vulnerable, beaten down and frustrated. Crawford walked back to his corner without a mark on him, his face blank, like this was just another night in the office. The camera zoomed in on Canelo, and the picture told the story, his chest heaving, his eyes flickering with doubt, his corner shouting desperately to keep him in the fight. Round 8 was pure brutality. Canelo tried to press forward again, throwing everything into his body shots, but Crawford had him figured out completely. He pivoted, slipped, and countered with venom. He landed a lightning-fast right hook that rattled Canelo's jaw. The sound of the punch echoed so loud the arena fell silent for a second before exploding. Canelo tried to fire back, but Crawford's combinations were faster, sharper, and more precise. He was landing at will, punishing the champion with every exchange. At one point, Crawford feinted, drew Canelo's guard up, and cracked him with a brutal left to the liver. Canelo froze, grimacing in pain. The crowd erupted as he backed up, clutching his side. Crawford smelled blood. He rushed forward, pounding Canelo with a barrage of hooks and straights, each punch snapping his head violently. The Mexican legend was pinned against the ropes, fighting for survival. Fans screamed, commentators yelled that it might be over, and for a split second it looked like the referee might step in. But Canelo, fueled by sheer pride, swung back, landing a desperate right hand that gave him just enough room to breathe until the bell rang. As the fighters returned to their corners, the split was clear. Crawford looked calm, surgical, almost emotionless. Canelo looked broken, bloodied, and desperate. His corner tried everything. Ice on his swollen face, words of motivation, tactical adjustments. But everyone watching could see the truth. Canelo wasn't in control anymore. Crawford was. And worse, Crawford knew it. Round 9 was a nightmare for the Canelo faithful. Crawford came out like a man possessed, sharp and merciless. He landed a vicious straight left that snapped Canelo's head back, followed by a right hook that sent sweat flying into the air. Canelo staggered, his legs betraying him again. Crawford stalked him, eyes locked, fists firing like pistons. Each shot landed cleaner than the last. Canelo swung back wildly, but his punches were slower, easier to read, the desperation dripping off every movement. The commentators couldn't hide it anymore. They said what the world was thinking. Canelo Alvarez, the face of boxing, was being dominated. Crawford wasn't just winning, he was dismantling him. The aura of invincibility was crumbling right in front of millions. Clips of the fight spread in real time across social media. Fans posted slow-motion replays of Canelo eating counters, his head snapping, his body folding under pressure. Memes labeled Crawford as the King Slayer. For the first time in his career, Canelo was being humiliated on the biggest stage. But the fight wasn't just about humiliation, it was about survival. Late in round 9, Crawford unleashed a brutal 5-punch combination, each shot landing flush. Canelo's knees buckled, his guard dropped, and the crowd screamed as if they were about to witness the end. The referee hovered close, ready to step in. But once again, pride kept Canelo upright. He swung back, eyes glassy, refusing to fall. The bell rang, and he staggered to his corner, barely making it to his stool. The camera zoomed in again, and the image went viral instantly. Canelo's face swollen, his lips split, his chest rising and falling like a man drowning. Across the ring, Crawford sat calmly, sipping water, staring straight ahead like a predator waiting to deliver the final blow. The contrast was chilling, by now fans knew. Unless Canelo landed the miracle punch of his life, this fight wasn't going to the scorecards. Crawford had broken him down piece by piece, and the finish felt inevitable. The crowd was in a frenzy, half screaming for Canelo to survive, half begging Crawford to end it. The tension was unbearable. As the fighters stood for round 10, the electricity in the arena was suffocating. Everyone knew they were about to witness history. Either Canelo would pull off the greatest comeback of his career, or Crawford was about to dethrone the king in brutal, unforgettable fashion. The bell rang, and both men stepped forward. One man carrying the weight of a collapsing empire, the other carrying the cold precision of an executioner. And with every second that ticked by, the truth became clearer. This wasn't just a fight anymore. This was a takeover. This was the storm Crawford had promised, and Canelo was standing in the middle of it, drowning. Round 10 began with the crowd on their feet, screaming so loud the referee could barely hear himself think. Canelo's fans were chanting his name, praying for a miracle. Crawford's fans were chanting, "Bud! Bud! Bud!" like a war cry. The entire arena was shaking, and both fighters stepped into the center like gladiators in the Coliseum. One man was bruised, battered, and holding on to pride. The other was calm, sharp, and ready to kill. Canelo tried to come forward, swinging with desperation. He launched a wild right hand, trying to land a punch that could change everything. But Crawford saw it coming a mile away. He slipped under, pivoted, and countered with a savage left uppercut that cracked Canelo flush on the chin. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The crowd gasped as Canelo staggered back, his legs wobbling violently. For the first time in years, the king looked like he might fall. Crawford pounced. He unloaded a barrage of punches, hooks, straights, uppercuts, every shot landing clean. Canelo was pinned on the ropes trying to cover up, but Crawford was breaking through the guard like it wasn't even there. The referee hovered, watching closely, the crowd screaming in chaos. And just when it looked like Canelo might go down, he roared back with a desperate left hook that grazed Crawford's temple. The crowd exploded, chanting Canelo's name as he staggered off the ropes and threw another flurry. It wasn't clean, it wasn't sharp, but it was pure heart. For a brief moment, it looked like Canelo had found a spark. He pushed forward, swinging wildly, his face bloodied, his eye nearly shut, but his pride refusing to die. Crawford slipped some, ate a couple glancing blows, but then just like that, he reset. He circled, jabbed, and cracked Canelo again with a straight that nearly sent his mouthpiece flying. The arena roared, split down the middle, half in shock, half in ecstasy. By the end of round 10, both men were drenched in sweat, but the difference was clear. Crawford looked in control, sharp, his punches still crisp. Canelo looked exhausted, beaten, his legs heavy, his face swollen. His corner begged him to dig deep, to find something, anything to survive. Fans at home flooded social media, screaming that Canelo was finished, that the takeover was real, that Crawford was about to rewrite boxing history in blood. Round 11 started, and everyone in the building could feel it. The end was coming. Crawford stepped out with that same icy calm, stalking Canelo like a predator circling prey. Canelo tried to jab, tried to move, but his legs were gone. His punches were slow, telegraphed, easy to read. Crawford slipped everything and punished him with counters. A hook landed. A straight followed. Another uppercut smashed through the guard. Each shot snapped Canelo's head back violently, sweat and blood flying through the air. The chants grew louder, desperate. Mexican fans screamed for their champion, begging him to hold on. But Crawford was merciless. He pushed forward, landing combinations with surgical precision. 1-2, hook, uppercut straight down the middle. Canelo's head whipped back again and again. His body buckled under the pressure. The referee watched closely, his eyes darting between Crawford's fists and Canelo's wobbling legs. Then it happened. Crawford feinted, drew Canelo's hands high, and cracked him with a monstrous right hand straight to the temple. The punch landed clean, devastating. Canelo's eyes rolled for a second as his legs gave out. He stumbled backward, crashing into the ropes, barely staying upright. The crowd lost its mind. The referee jumped in, but Canelo threw a wild swing to show he was still conscious. Crawford didn't hesitate. He unleashed a brutal combination. Left, right, uppercut, hook that smashed Canelo over and over. His body slumped, his guard dropped, and the referee finally had no choice. He leapt in, waving it off. The fight was over. Terence "Bud" Crawford had done the unthinkable. He had stopped Canelo Alvarez. The arena erupted into absolute chaos. Half the fans screamed in devastation, some in tears, as their king had just been dethroned. The other half erupted in celebration, screaming Bud's name, throwing their fists in the air, chanting as if they had just witnessed a revolution. Social media instantly exploded. Clips of the knockout flooded every corner of the internet. Headlines screamed around the world, "Crawford destroys Canelo. The king is dead. A new era begins." Inside the ring, Canelo's corner rushed to help him to his stool. His face was swollen, his eye nearly shut, blood trickling from his lip. He shook his head, devastated, refusing to look at the cameras. For years he had been the untouchable king, the face of boxing, the pride of Mexico. And now he had been broken in front of the world. Crawford, on the other hand, raised his fists in the air, calm and cold, as if this was exactly what he had promised all along. His face barely bruised, his expression unreadable. He stood in the center of the ring as the chants of "Bud! Bud! Bud!" shook the arena. Reporters swarmed ringside, fans screamed from the stands, and the entire boxing world realized they had just witnessed history. The post-fight scene was unforgettable. Crawford grabbed the microphone, his voice steady, his words cutting. "I told you all what was gonna happen. I told you. He was the king, but kings fall. And tonight, the crown is mine. The crowd erupted again, his words instantly spreading across social media. Memes, quotes, and highlight reels flooded timelines. Crawford wasn't just the man who beat Canelo. He was the man who destroyed him. Canelo, holding back tears, tried to speak. He thanked his fans, said he gave everything, but the pain was obvious. This wasn't just a loss, it was humiliation. His legacy, his pride, his empire had taken a brutal hit, and everyone watching knew it would never be the same again. Fans argued furiously online. Some called it the end of an era, the death of Canelo's reign. Others insisted he was still a legend, still the face of Mexican boxing, still one of the greatest to ever do it. But even his most loyal supporters couldn't deny what they had just seen. Crawford had walked into the fire and come out with the crown. The boxing world was in shock. Analysts declared it the greatest performance of Crawford's career, a masterclass in precision and destruction. Others said it was the biggest upset in modern boxing history, a fight that would be talked about for decades. Either way, one fact was undeniable. Terence Crawford had just changed the sport forever. The morning after the fight, the world was still reeling. Headlines screamed in shock across every corner of the globe. Crawford dethrones Canelo. King destroyed in brutal KO. A new era begins in boxing. Social media was a war zone. Fans, analysts, and celebrities flooded platforms, dissecting every frame, every punch, every grimace of the fallen champion. For hours, there was nothing but chaos. Videos of the knockout replayed endlessly. GIFs of Canelo staggering and Crawford's calm. Lethal counters circulating like wildfire. Boxing forums exploded with arguments. Mexican fans refused to believe what they had seen, swearing that it must have been an off night, that Canelo would come back stronger. Crawford's fans, meanwhile, celebrated like kings, claiming that their man had just etched his name permanently into history. Memes flew everywhere, Canelo depicted as a dethroned king, Crawford as a predator walking away untouched. Every clip was edited, remixed, and spread. And the hashtag #BudvisCanelo was trending worldwide for over 48 hours straight. Legendary fighters weighed in, and their reactions only added fuel to the fire. Floyd Mayweather, usually quiet and calculating, posted a cryptic tweet. Some kings fall, some predators rise. History has its own way of speaking. The boxing community erupted in interpretation. Was Floyd praising Crawford? Was he acknowledging Canelo's humanity? Everyone had an opinion, but one thing was clear. This fight was bigger than both men individually. It was a seismic event shaking the very foundation of modern boxing. Canelo's peers spoke too. Fighters like Gennady Golovkin and Caleb Plant expressed disbelief. I didn't think anyone could do what Crawford did, one said in a post-fight interview. Canelo is the toughest guy I've ever seen, and Bud just dismantled him. That was insane. Crawford's contemporaries, meanwhile, hailed him as unstoppable. Errol Spence Jr., whom Crawford had also defeated, called him a complete fighter, smarter, faster, and colder than anyone alive. The narrative spread quickly. Terence Crawford wasn't just a champion, he was untouchable. The media frenzy was relentless. Sports networks aired round-by-round breakdowns for hours. Analysts replayed the knockout over and over, highlighting Crawford's precision, timing, a mental dominance. Some claimed this was one of the greatest knockouts in modern boxing history. Others said it was a masterclass in tactical warfare, showing Crawford as a fighter who could outthink, outmaneuver, and outpunch the best. Every segment included the same shocking footage. Canelo staggered, Canelo swollen, Crawford unmarked, deadly calm. Meanwhile, in the streets of Mexico City, fans were in shock. Bars, arenas, and living rooms were filled with silence, disbelief, and tears. Some refused to turn off the replay, as if watching again might somehow undo what had happened. Across the border in Omaha, Nebraska, Crawford's hometown erupted. Fans took to the streets, chanting, celebrating, honking horns, waving flags. Crawford had become a local hero overnight, a symbol of precision, discipline, and ruthless skill. The contrast between despair and celebration couldn't have been more extreme. Social media debates became apocalyptic. Fans argued endlessly over the why and the how. Was Canelo's decline showing? Was Crawford simply that good? Could any fighter in history withstand his precision and intelligence in the ring? Analysts flooded podcasts with discussion panels that lasted hours. Every detail of the fight was examined. Canelo's swollen eye, the strategic feints by Crawford, the counters that broke the champion. Every fan had a clip to support their argument. Every analyst had a theory. And every theory concluded the same thing. Crawford was a nightmare and Canelo had been exposed. The psychological aftermath for Canelo was immediate and brutal. Interviews painted a picture of a man grappling with shock. "I gave everything," he said, voice low and hoarse. "I tried, but he was better. He was sharper, smarter. I didn't see it coming like that." Fans sensed humility, but also defeat. This was a king brought low, a legend forced to confront vulnerability in a way few had ever seen. Social media threads analyzed every word, every pause, every inflection. People couldn't stop talking about it, and neither could Canelo's peers. Even those who had faced him before admitted this was different. Crawford, conversely, was untouchable in his demeanor. In post-fight interviews, he didn't boast. He didn't taunt. He explained his strategy with cold precision. Timing, patience, counters, exploiting every opening. "I trained for years for this," he said. "I knew what he could do. I just stayed calm, let the openings come, and took my shots. That's it." Analysts praised his mental composure, noting that Crawford had executed a perfect fight plan against the most skilled and dangerous opponent he had ever faced. The ripple effects didn't stop there. Betting companies reported massive losses from Canelo fans who refused to believe he could lose. Pay-per-view numbers skyrocketed, breaking records as fans and curious observers tuned in to witness history. Boxing gyms and training programs suddenly saw Crawford's style analyzed and emulated. Young fighters started studying the angles, the counters, the shifts in stance. Crawford's performance was becoming a blueprint for modern boxing dominance. Meanwhile, debates about Canelo's legacy erupted. Critics said he had peaked, that the fight proved he could be broken, and that Crawford had proven himself the true pound-for-pound king. Supporters countered, claiming that one loss didn't erase years of dominance and legendary battles. The boxing world was divided, but everyone agreed on one thing. Crawford had delivered a performance that would echo for decades. Every magazine, website, and channel featured headlines praising Crawford, dissecting the fight, and framing it as one of the biggest moments in the sport's history. The cultural impact was undeniable. Fans in Mexico mourned, while fans in Omaha celebrated. International attention skyrocketed, with social media posts in multiple languages analyzing the fight frame by frame. Celebrities from music, film, and sports weighed in, sharing their shock and admiration for Crawford's performance. It wasn't just a boxing match anymore. It was a global event, a cultural moment that transcended sport. Even weeks later, discussions didn't stop. Every highlight clip, every slow motion breakdown, every commentary replay reminded the world what had happened. Canelo had been dethroned. Crawford had walked through fire, executed with cold precision, and emerged as the new king. Fans debated whether Canelo could come back, whether Crawford could maintain dominance, and who might challenge him next. But one truth remained unshakable. The fight had changed boxing forever. And as analysts, fans and fighters continued to dissect the outcome. One fact became clear. Terence Crawford didn't just beat Canelo Alvarez. He destroyed him. He humiliated him. He proved that mental acuity, precision, and patience could dismantle even the most feared champion. The world had witnessed a masterclass, a warning and a statement that Crawford was now untouchable. The days following the fight were unlike anything boxing had ever experienced. Headlines screamed across the world. Crawford redefines boxing. The fall of a king. Canelo crushed by precision. Social media was still ablaze. Fans uploading clips, GIFs, memes, and reaction videos nonstop. The fight replayed millions of times on every platform. Each viewing reminding the world of the brutal reality. Canelo Alvarez had been dismantled by Terence Crawford. Sports networks ran endless highlight reels. Analysts broke down every angle, every jab, every counter. The commentary was unanimous. Crawford had executed the perfect fight plan. He had exploited every weakness, timed every punch perfectly, and controlled the fight from start to finish. Analysts pointed out moments from the early rounds. Canelo's hesitation, the missed punches, the counters that snapped his head back, and contrasted them with Crawford's calm, methodical dominance. Every frame told the same story. Crawford was the better fighter that night, and possibly the better fighter overall. Fans continued to debate the implications. Mexican fans mourned, some saying Canelo's era was over, while others defended him, insisting that legends can rise again. Crawford's supporters, meanwhile, treated the victory as historic. In forums, social media threads, and podcasts, people declared this fight a turning point in boxing history. They called Crawford the Kingslayer, a fighter whose patience, precision, and intelligence had rewritten what was possible inside the ring. The cultural shockwaves were enormous. In Mexico City, fans lit candles, held gatherings, and discussed the fight in hushed, reverent tones. Bars were quiet. Social media threads were filled with disbelief and frustration. Across Omaha, Nebraska, Crawford's hometown erupted into celebration. Streets were filled with fans cheering, honking car horns, waving flags. Crawford became an overnight legend in his city, a symbol of intelligence, composure, and dominance. The contrast between despair and jubilation could not have been more stark. Boxing legends offered their verdicts. Floyd Mayweather called it a masterpiece of patience and execution. Manny Pacquiao posted a video praising Crawford's timing and strategy. Even fighters who had faced Canelo before admitted that Crawford's performance was extraordinary. Canelo is tough as nails, one said, but Bud didn't just beat him, he broke him. Analysts emphasized that Crawford's victory wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He had dismantled the aura of invincibility that surrounded Canelo, proving that no fighter, no matter how legendary, is untouchable. Canelo himself faced a storm of scrutiny. Interviews showed him humbled, exhausted, and reflective. "I gave everything," he admitted. "I trained, I fought hard, but he was sharper, faster, better. I have to accept that. I will learn from it, and I will come back." Fans sympathized with the human side of the champion, but they also understood that his loss marked a turning point in his legacy. The aura of dominance, the untouchable king, had been shattered in the eyes of the world. Crawford, in contrast, maintained his icy calm. His interviews were precise, focused, almost eerily detached. "I trained for this moment," he said. "I knew what he could do, I stuck to the plan, and it worked. I respect him, but I came to win." That's what champions do. Analysts praised Crawford's mental fortitude. He hadn't just won. He had dominated without showing vulnerability, without letting emotion compromise his strategy. It was the perfect execution, a blueprint for the next generation of fighters. The fight's influence spread beyond just sports media. Social media challenges, memes, and viral clips proliferated worldwide. The knockout round from round 11 became a cultural touchstone. Even people who didn't follow boxing closely were watching, sharing clips and debating the fight's implications. The story wasn't just about two men, it was about legacy, dominance, pride, and the absolute ruthlessness of elite competition. Pay-per-view numbers confirmed what everyone suspected. This was a historic event. Millions of viewers tuned in globally, breaking previous records for Canelo fights, Crawford fights, and modern boxing in general. Every replay, every highlight, every analysis segment generated massive engagement. The economic impact of the fight alone, from betting to merchandise, confirmed that this was more than a sporting event. It was a worldwide spectacle. As analysts dissected the fight for weeks, the consensus grew. Crawford wasn't just a great fighter. He was a strategic genius in the ring. His timing, precision, and calm under pressure had neutralized one of the most feared punchers of the generation. Fans revisited previous fights, noting how Crawford's methodical approach had evolved over years, culminating in this perfect performance against a legend. The victory solidified his status as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters alive. The psychological impact on Canelo's career was immense. Trainers, promoters, and boxing historians noted that while Canelo remained a phenomenal talent, he had been exposed. Questions arose. Could he recover? Could he compete at the same level? Could he adapt to fighters like Crawford in the future? The discussion was tense, speculative, but unavoidable. The aura of invincibility was gone, and with it, a shift in how fans and fighters perceived him forever. Crawford's legacy, by contrast, skyrocketed overnight. He wasn't just a champion. He was the man who ended an era, a fighter whose skill, patience, and intelligence had rewritten what dominance looks like. Boxing schools analyzed his technique, fighters studied his approach, and the entire sport shifted its focus. Crawford had set a new standard, and the fight against Canelo became a teaching tool for aspiring athletes everywhere. The world had witnessed more than a fight. It had witnessed a turning point, a historic moment where a carefully calculated strategy met raw talent and shattered expectations. Crawford had dominated physically, mentally, and strategically. Canelo had fought with heart, but even the heart of a king couldn't withstand the cold precision of the new era. As the months passed, discussions continued. Debates raged about whether Canelo could reclaim his throne, whether Crawford could maintain his dominance, and who might challenge him next. Historians and analysts alike agreed on one thing. This fight would be remembered as a watershed moment in boxing history,